Part 150. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1491. She had no intention of spending her children's money, so she still spent her own money to buy things, and her two nephews served as followers and were responsible for picking up the things. Seeing them buying like this, many of the salespersons at the counter were stunned. It's not that I've never seen people come to Yuyi store to make big purchases, but there are very few people like them. Most of the things they buy are the cheapest daily necessities in Yuyi store, but some of them can be found anywhere except Friendship store and overseas Chinese store. Precious and scarce commodities that cannot be sold, such as household appliances and hairspray. Feng Qingxiu didn't care what others thought, she bought it because she needed it, it was that simple. Lu Tianzi and Guan Yu couldn't see through other people's thoughts. They followed Auntie's lead in everything. Lu Tianzi put forward his own opinion. Auntie, I saw a very beautiful cloth on the counter selling fabrics. Let's buy a piece for Fubao, let's make clothes. The Chinese New Year is coming soon. Make 2 more clothes for Fubao. Fubao will be very happy. Who in the whole family doesn't know Fubao's love for beauty? There is such a well-behaved and beautiful sister in the family. As a brother, he should pamper her. Feng Qingxiu felt sad thinking that her daughter had a skirt but couldn't wear it, so she nodded, okay, let's go take a look. Because she had already bought the necessary fabrics, she didn't notice what beautiful fabrics were on the counter when she passed by the counter. However, Lu Tianzi was careful and reminded her. It's wool material, imported from Australia, dyed bright red, pure red. And, this is beautiful. Let's buy more. Aunt will make a woolen coat and Fubao will make another. Lu Tianzi remembered that although his aunt's woolen coat was not broken when she got married, it was already very old. The uncle was so careless that he didn't even buy new clothes for his aunt. Lu Tianzi unhappily complained secretly to Lu Zhang. This piece of material is really something you can only come across. Feng Qingxiu has rarely seen such a true red color, and such good material, so she got it all immediately, spending a total of more than 200 yuan, almost 300 yuan. It looks even better up close. Lu Tianzi and Guan Yu's eyes were filled with wonder. Feng Qingxiu smiled and agreed. Not to mention the 2 children, she also liked it very much. I bought this piece of material and almost spent the money I brought out today. Let's go back and come back next time when we have time. She was about to hold the piece of material in her arms and take it back when a hand suddenly stretched out from her side and said, Mom, I want this piece of material. Her voice was delicate and crisp, but her tone was domineering. Feng Qingxiu likes this material, and her daughter must also like it? How could it be touched by outsiders? He immediately dodged away and looked at the girl who was speaking, perhaps a young girl. She was dressed very fashionably. On such a cold day, she was not wearing a cotton coat, but was wearing a red and blue plaid woolen coat and black woolen trousers, with her collar exposed. Wearing a woolen coat and black leather shoes, he was about 11 or 12 years old. Seeing this face, Feng Qingxiu thought of Wu Zhanling. The face shape and facial features were so similar. Looking up, as expected, the mother in the girl's mouth was Wu Zhanling, and there was an old woman next to her. She looked exactly like an old Wu Zhanling. No need to guess, it must be Du Wan. Sure enough, after Feng Qingxiu dodged, the girl said coquettishly to the old woman, Grandma, please let her give me the red woolen cloth. Okay, my granddaughter deserves the best, Du Wan said with a smile, and said directly to Feng Qingxiu, Comrade, you see that my granddaughter particularly likes this piece of material, please transfer it to us, she won't, I'm not treating you well on the price. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1492. After listening to Du Wan's words, Feng Qingxiu looked at Wu Zhanling, who was frightened at first and then relied on her mother to rely on her. She smiled slightly and slowly rejected Du Wan in the proud eyes of Wu Zhanling's daughter. Sorry, although we are from the countryside, we really don't need that much money. Do you know who my grandpa is? If I ask you to transfer a piece of cloth, I'm looking down on you. The girl jumped up in anger. Her tone was exactly the same as Wu Zhanling's. Du Wan was rejected by Feng Qingxiu, and her face looked ugly, so she did not stop her granddaughter. Seeing Du Wan, who indulged her granddaughter in this way, Feng Qingxiu didn't want her sister to be related to Wu Zhanpeng, so she smiled sarcastically and said unceremoniously, "You don't even know who your grandfather is, so you ask me, an outsider, what? However, I know that I really don't care about you." The girl was furious, and Du Wan's ugly face became a little more angry. "What did you say?" "Comrade Dujuan," Feng Qingxiu called out the name. Seeing the other person's eyes widening in surprise, she said calmly, "What I mean is very simple. We bought this piece of material, and we have no obligation to give it to others. If you have a good relationship or the other party is polite, it is not difficult to give up a few feet of material, but the third generation of the cuckoo girl is too rude." Du Wan couldn't help but look at her. "Who are you? Do you know me? Ordinary people have no chance to know her." Du Wan, who thought this way, never thought that her husband did not reach the sky in one step, but walked step by step. They had also traveled here and there with the army, had been hungry, and had lived in the market. She only remembered she is the wife of minister, and she only remembers the senior cotters she saw in front of her. "It doesn't matter who I am, what matters is that I know what to do and what not to do." After saying this, Feng Qingxiu called her two nephews. "Tianzi, Au, let's go home, otherwise the two bears will have a quarrel at home." He quickly took the ingredients back to make his daughter happy. "Okay, auntie." The two brothers immediately followed her, and Lu Tianzi did not forget to say to her, "Aunt, our sewing machine is at home, and making clothes is so tiring. When we get home, find a tailor to make one. You can make one, and Fuebao can make one. The day after the Chinese New Year will be warm enough to wear. Make one for Fuebao and keep the rest. You may not be able to find such good materials when you marry your wife." The satin and woolen materials of this era were of extremely hard quality and would not deteriorate after decades of storage. They looked little different from new ones. Feng Qingxiu did not consider giving it to Zhang Xiaoyu and Zhong Wengziu, nor did she consider giving it to Feng Qingyun. They wore military uniforms every day. If they were given it, they could only put it at the bottom of the box, because red clothes were usually difficult to wear out. "And, you don't want to do it?" Guan Yu frowned. "Auntie hasn't made new clothes for several years. Now that the country's economy is in dire straits, it's enough to have enough clothes to wear. There's no need to keep chasing new clothes." Feng Qingxiu smiled slightly. Fuebao was an exception. It's okay for children to dress brightly. Your uncle Hu Ping's daughter from the northeast will be here tomorrow. She is 18 years old this year, and her marriage will only last for a year or two. I will send her a piece of material to use as a new dress for the wedding. The content and sounds of the conversation became farther and farther away as they left. Wu Zhanling's daughter raised her foot to catch up. She had not achieved her goal, so how could she be willing to do so? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1493. That piece of red wool is so beautiful. Wu Zhanling's daughter has never seen such a beautiful material. The red and blue plaid on her body is already a rare commodity. She bought it from Shanghai No. 1 department store. It is also the most fashionable style in Shanghai. But compared with the big red woolen plaid, it immediately fell behind. It was simply a world of difference. When Du Wan saw Feng Qingxiu's face and heard what she said, she knew she was not simple. She frowned slightly and said, "Zhanling, why are you standing there stunned? Don't let Jiao Jiao follow." Wu Zhanling grabbed her daughter Du Jiao before Du Wan reminded her. "Grandma," Du Jiao stamped her feet angrily. "Why are you in a hurry? I'll go back and ask who she is. Your grandpa and I will go to her door to ask for it in person." "I don't believe that their family won't give your grandpa face," Du Wan said very confidently. "Since her husband became the Ministry of Foreign Affairs 3 years ago, Minister, I have been enjoying a life of stars, and no one will deny me face." Du Jiao's expression softened. "Grandma, you keep your word. That piece of material is really beautiful." "Of course I keep my word because his son and daughter-in-law did not allow him to take care of his grandson." Du Wan loved his granddaughter especially. Another reason was that his son-in-law Du Jiangguo happened to have the same surname as him, which made him even closer. The salesperson selling fabrics said weakly, "I also have a piece of bright red wool here." Although it was an imported product, the quantity was small, and the number allocated to this friendship store was very limited. 2 pieces were taken away by someone with connections, but it was not just one piece of material. After hearing what the salesperson said, the salesperson selling ready-made clothes next to him burst into laughter. The faces of Du Wan and Wu Zhanling, mother and daughter, suddenly turned green and white, extremely ugly. "Do you still want to buy it?" The salesperson took out the material. The bright red color was exactly the same as the one Feng Qingxiu bought. "This material is not cheap. It costs at least 50 or 60 yuan to make a coat." Dujuan scowled, buy 4 feet. Not to mention how the 3 of them paid for the coupons. Feng Qingxiu and her mother had already left the friendship store. Feng Qingxiu went straight to the grain and oil store to queue up and asked the 2 children to send the purchased items home and bring back grain bags and oil barrels. 10 remittance coupons can buy 200 kilograms of grain and 30 kilograms of oil. Although it was not early in the morning, the queue at the entrance of the grain store was still very long. Everyone was holding a container of grain. Because of the severe cold weather, many people in thin clothes stomped their feet to keep warm. The wind and snow were falling behind, and suddenly I heard a quarrel coming from the front, a male voice and a female voice. "You damn boy, get out of here. I'm your biological sister-in-law, and my elder sister-in-law is like my mother. How could you treat your mother like this? What's wrong with me using food stamps to buy things? Should I leave it to you to eat in restaurants every day?" Feng Qingxiu looked around and saw a very tall and thin man holding tightly the food stamps he had snatched from the middle-aged woman's hand. "This is my food stamp. You have your food supply, why are you stealing mine?" The middle-aged woman suddenly became furious. "What are you stealing? Keep your mouth clean." This man, who is in his 30s, said every word. "You took advantage of me when I was drunk and took the food stamps issued to me from the factory. If you take it without asking, you are a thief. That's because I don't want to see you extravagant and wasteful, going out to restaurants every day," the middle-aged woman argued. "When I buy food, the whole family can eat it, and it's not like I won't deny it to you." As soon as I heard that Hansi went to restaurants every day, many people pointed fingers. There was an accident at home. Before I went to the hospital, I wrote more than 8,000 words but didn't have time to edit or post it. But I just added some content, so I can only update a little bit first and continue to update it tonight. Apologize prostratingly. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1494. The middle-aged woman repeated the words Tiantiangzi restaurant again and again, and most people became disgusted with the man. Feng Qingxiu did not draw a conclusion immediately, but listened carefully to the discussions of the men, women, and children lining up around her. If they buy food from the same food store, they must all belong to the same street, and they will naturally know each other. Soon, Feng Qingxiu heard someone in front of her say in a moderate voice, "Isn't that Shigo and Tao? I had an argument with his sister-in-law again. I have to argue every 10 days and a half. It's not annoying enough. Do you know them? Why don't you know them? Their family lives next door to our courtyard. What about the quarrel between the two of them? It's also strange that the sister-in-law and the brother-in-law quarreled. If you ask me, if Shigo and Tao is more cruel, he should drive out his brother, sister-in-law, and the whole family to avoid quarreling every day. What's up? His sister-in-law Lu Gaixiang is greedy. Although we all can't stand Shigo and Tao's behavior in Tianashanxia restaurant, but he is an old bachelor, and his family is doing nothing but eating in the cafeteria. Why can't he go to the restaurant if he doesn't eat in the cafeteria? Anyway, it's not like he has no money or tickets. It's his sister-in-law who always wants to use Shigo and Tao's wages and food stamps to spend with the whole family. Isn't this a grudge? Why don't the whole family eat together? Why don't you and I eat separately? The middle-aged woman who knew the situation at Shigo and Tao's family shook her head and whispered, "Eat together? It's easy to say, but difficult to do. It would be great if Shigo and Tao allows his brother and sister-in-law to live in his home. There are 12 children. They still want to eat his flowers. How can there be such a beautiful thing? Shigo and Tao will not marry a wife in the future." After hearing this, the person who asked the question became more interested and couldn't help but continue to ask. Feng Qingxiu also learned the general situation. This Shigo and Tao was a retired soldier, working at a police station, and was still a deputy director. He had been back for several years after returning from the job. His salary level was not low, and his treatment was good. Many people tried to match him, just because his habit of going to restaurants all over the world failed. Some people advised him to get rid of his gluttony and drink, marry a wife and live a good life, but he refused to change. It seems that he really can't change. I guess he was very hungry before and all he could think about was eating and drinking. Because of this, the police station criticized him many times and said that he refused to change despite repeated admonitions. The middle-aged woman who said this incident sighed. He took a breath and said, "Fortunately, apart from being greedy for food and drink, Shigo and Tao has no other problems, and he has a good reputation. Everyone turns a blind eye, and it is because he has no share in the promotion." Shigo and Tao left after grabbing the food stamps, and his sister-in-law left the team because she was bored, but Feng Qingxiu listened with interest. Whether it is in the military compound, in the market, or in the countryside, it seems to be the nature of women to gossip, and they can always learn about the secrets of each family from everyone's gossip. Lu Tianzi and Guan Yu pushed the one-wheeled trolley over. Seeing their aunt listening attentively, they couldn't help but smile. In addition to bags of grain and cans of oil, there was also a little boy wrapped up like a bear on the cart. "Er Xiang? Why did you follow him out?" Feng Qingxiu asked in surprise. "Mom," Lu Erxiang jumped out of the car, grabbed his mother's lapel, pouted, and said aggrievedly, "Grandpa and brother took brother Dun Dun and Zhuang Zhuang out to play, but they didn't take me with them and didn't love me at all." Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1495. After hearing Lu Erxiang's accusation, Lu Tianzi couldn't help but said, "Aren't you too cold to go out and wanted to paint with your sister at home? If you hadn't put the paint on your sister's painting, you were afraid of being beaten. Will you come out with us?" "That's right, Lu Erxiang, you can't lie," Guan Yu said from the side. Lu Erxiang stuck out his tongue and made a face, ignored Lu Tianzi and Guan Yu, and only acted coquettishly towards Feng Qingxiu. "Why are you causing trouble for your sister again? Your sister should really give you a beating." Feng Qingxiu touched the hat on his head. "You also said that your grandpa won't take you out to play, Your brother Tianzi and your brother Guanyu, didn't I take you out? Stand still and don't run around, or I won't be able to find you when I turn around. I know, Lu Erxiang stood on tiptoes and looked forward. Mom, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 others. It's your turn. Let's buy food and go home to make rice, okay? I want to eat it. Fried rice with eggs. Okay, it's been a long time since we had fried rice at home. Lu Erxiang's request was met, and he put his little hand into Feng Qingxiu's palm and lined up with her. A young woman in the queue behind them saw that he was extremely cute with a tiger-like head, and couldn't help but ask, how old is this child this year? He looks really good. Feng Qingxiu turned around and smiled, I just celebrated my 4th birthday. That's 5 years old, so chubby. The young woman wearing a floral gown had eyes full of envy. Fat? Feng Qingxiu lowered her head and looked at Sun Xiang. In fact, Dun Dun and Lu Erxiang started to eat strips after they were 3 or 4 years old. Dun Dun lost weight naturally. Just like Zibao, Lu Erxiang lost weight a little slower. Who told him to eat more? Although he is a little fatter than the average child, he is not as fat as he was when he was a child, and his double chin is almost gone. But in the eyes of others, he is just fat, so fat that people envy him. Feng Qingxiu chatted with the young woman for a while, and then it was her turn. She quickly handed over the money and overseas remittance coupons, 100 caddies of white flour, 100 caddies of rice. They were all fine grains. The staff at the grain store were very clever. They cut off the grain stamps on the overseas remittance coupons, collected the money, gave the change, and immediately weighed the grain. 200 kilograms of grain were packed into 4 cloth bags, and Lu Tianzi and Guanyu hurriedly stacked them on the cart. Although it attracted many envious looks, no one was too surprised, because many families bought grain on a per-household basis. Families with a large population naturally buy a lot of grain, and almost the whole family, old and young, goes out to transport hundreds of kilograms of grain home. I bought food and oil, but instead of sanitary oil, I used 20 pounds of peanut oil and 10 pounds of rapeseed oil. Sanitary oil is cottonseed oil, and soybeans and peanuts are exported for foreign exchange, so the oil is so scarce. Seeing them pumping so much oil makes everyone jealous. It would take a family to save for several years to pump so much oil. Lu Tianzi was pushing the trolley, and Guanyu was holding the grain and oil cans on the trolley. They saw Christine as soon as they arrived at the door of the house. Christine waved to them without saying anything. Feng, Lu, I'm here again, but there's no one at your house. No one? How could there be no one? Isn't Wan Quilin at home with Fubao? Feng Qingxiu looked at the door, and it was indeed General Tai who was holding the door. Christine smiled and said, there is just no one. I guess everyone in the family has gone out to play. Although the children were not allowed to go out without an adult, it would be different if an adult was with them. They would not be detained at home. Feng Qingxiu opened the lock and said, sorry, Christine, please come in. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1496. Christine was enthusiastic and frank. She regarded the Lu family as good friends. When Feng Qingxiu walked into the yard first, she lagged behind and came to Lu Tianzi's side. While looking at the trolley, she whispered, Lu Tianzi, is it possible for me to eat scallion pancakes today? It can be seen that the best-tempered ones in the Lu family are Lu Tianzi and Dun Dun, but Dun Dun is too young and can't cook. Looking sideways and seeing Christine's big eyes full of expectation, Lu Tianzi nodded, do you like eating it so much? I'll make it in a minute. We just bought the flour with the overseas remittance coupon you gave to my aunt. When it came to the overseas remittance coupons, Feng Qingxiu entered the room and said to Christine, "The overseas remittance coupons you gave are too valuable. We spent part of them without rejecting your kindness. You can take the rest back. There are many places. It comes in handy." Christine shook her head and said, "We don't need it, we won't take it back. We usually eat Western food and don't use overseas remittance coupons. We only use a little when we go to the store to buy things, but many of the things we want to buy don't require this overseas remittance. We will go back soon if we don't use the coupon. It will be wasted if we can't use it. I gave it to you to make the best use of it." The last sentence she said in Chinese was not pronounced correctly and had a strange accent. "But we deserve it, Christine. Your parents have already given us so many expensive gifts, and you give us such a remittance voucher." Feng Qingxiu could hardly take it for granted. I'm not ashamed, I should be." Christine waved her hands, rolled her eyes like the blue sky, and then said, "My dear, if you are guilty, then treat me to dinner, okay? Lu's cooking is very good. Eat, scallion pancakes, delicious. That's no problem. Our family welcomes you every day, and we can treat you to dinner every day." Feng Qingxiu agreed, "The rice I cook is also delicious. Today we are making dumplings. We have a saying called delicious but dumplings. Do you think I'll make you some scallion pancakes to take back for dinner when you leave?" Kristen clapped her hands, "Okay, okay." She took out the gifts she had brought from her bag, 5 boxes of brightly colored crayons. They were obviously given to the 5 children of the Lu family, rather than coming empty-handed. This made the Lu family feel very comfortable, including those who had returned. Lu's father and grandson. When Wang Quilin and Fu Bao arrived, Lu Tianzi was chopping dumpling fillings and Feng Qingxiu was making noodles. Seeing this, Wang Quilin immediately rolled up her sleeves to help. "It's too late to buy meat now, and there are no meat tickets at home. Fortunately, there is a large bowl of mutton fat residue and a piece of fat mutton frozen in ice. Feng Qingxiu got it 2 days ago under the guise of the black market. Onion and mutton stuffing, full of oil and water." Feng Qingxiu originally wanted to use cabbage and mutton oil residue filling, but thinking that Christine likes to eat onions, she temporarily changed it to onions and made only a little dumplings filled with cabbage and mutton oil residue for the child to eat. Watching the fat and white dumplings floating in the water, Christine's eyes widened. Boil water 3 times until the dumplings are cooked. Adults and children lined up with bowls in their hands. Feng Qingxiu took a pickle to scoop out the dumplings. A pickle was a big bowl. If the bowl couldn't fit, they scooped them out onto a plate or an enamel rice bowl. While he was busy, Lu Zhang brought people back. "Qingxiu, there are guests at home. I bought some cooked vegetables and steamed buns and sesame cakes. What did you cook at home?" Hearing Lu Jiang's words, Feng Qingxiu was stunned and handed over the task of catching dumplings to Lu Tianzi. When she walked out of the kitchen, she saw Lu Jiang and Shi Guantao entering side by side, followed by guards carrying lunch boxes. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1497. Seeing Shi Guantao, Feng Qingxiu was immediately surprised. "Comrade Shi Guantao," she blurted out and saw the surprised looks in Lu Jiang and Shi Guantao's eyes. A trace of doubt flashed in Lu Jiang's eyes. "Do you know Comrade Shi Guantao?" Feng Qingxiu nodded and said, "I was queuing up to buy food today and accidentally saw Comrade Shi Guantao. I also learned about Comrade Shi Guantao's past and current occupation from other people's mouths." After hearing this, Shi Guantao said sheepishly, "My sister-in-law is laughing. How can a family have a joke? Come on, please come to the house. It's better to come early than to come by chance. The dumplings have just come out of the pot. Eat them while they are hot." The flowers on the edges of the dumplings are cabbage fillings. They don't have the spiciness of onions. They are for children. Yes, you have to pay attention and eat with them first, and the rest belongs to us adults. Ajong, you call Comrade Shigo and Tao, and I will heat up the food you bought. Thanks to the strength of the crowd, I made a lot of dumplings today, and I originally wanted to freeze the extra ones for tomorrow. After taking out all the dumplings from the pot, she quickly put down the remaining dumplings. The braised pork, stir-fried pork skin with cabbage and shredded pork with Beijing sauce that Lu Zhang brought back were placed directly on the grate of the small pot for distillation. Lu Zhang came in to help and added charcoal to the stove. If you don't entertain guests in the main room, what are you doing in the kitchen? This is not the way to entertain guests. Guan Tao is not an outsider. Dad, Tianzi, and his brothers are here. Let me take a look at the remaining food, Lu Zhang said. Feng Qingxiu hummed, didn't you just go back? Why are you back again? How many days can you stay at home this time? What is Comrade Shigo and Tao's condition? I'm almost dying of curiosity. Lu Zhang smiled slightly and said, I came back when my work required me. How many days can I stay? I go to the headquarters during the day and come back at night. However, I won't stay long. The establishment of diplomatic relations between China and the United States is imminent. We all have to be prepared at all times and in all aspects pay attention. As for Comrade Shigo and Tao, he was a boy soldier in the army and was with me for a few years. Why haven't I seen him? If I had seen him, I wouldn't have failed to recognize him when buying food. Lu Zhang sighed, he followed me a long time ago. He is 3 years younger than me. In a battle, only 5 people from our company survived. I was one of them, and he was one of them. Brother Zhao is one of them. Guan Tao was not in the same team as us more than 10 years ago. Of course you have never met him. It is a coincidence that you met him today. Feng Qingxiu added half a ladle of water to the pot and said, they say he likes to go out to restaurants. Why don't you eat in a state-owned restaurant? You are comrades in arms, so you should know each other better. Do you know why Guan Tao likes to go out to restaurants? Lu Zhang suddenly said. Why? Before and after the founding of the People's Republic of China, the conditions in the army have been very difficult, and it was difficult for brothers to have enough to eat and drink. Before going to the battlefield, we made an agreement. Whoever walked off the battlefield alive would wait until the communist society, and who would wait until the peaceful age. Just eat one more delicious meal for the sacrificed comrades. Guan Tao went to the restaurant not to eat and drink for himself, but to fulfill his promise to the sacrificed comrades, but it was difficult to do so in the cafeteria or at home. The food was good, so I went to the restaurant. Having said this, Lu Zhang rubbed his eyes that were blurred by gray. Most of my comrades like to eat braised pork. Both Guan Tao and I will eat for them for the rest of our lives. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1498. Feng Qingxiu finally understood why Lu Zhang liked to eat meat, and braised pork was his favorite. Logically speaking, the conditions of the Lu family were superior. Lu Zhang had never experienced hardship before joining the army. He was located in a remote location and probably ate less delicacies. There was definitely no shortage of chicken, fish, meat, and eggs. At that time, she thought that it was a difficult period and Lu Zhang would not have enough food in the army. Well, later on, I experienced a lot more and realized that if you have money and connections, you can go to a state-owned restaurant to have a good meal and improve your life, so I occasionally murmured in my heart. At this time, the doubts were answered, and she learned that the last 5 people of the company survived. Feng Qingxiu's eyes were a little sour. The days will get better and better, and we will not let down the martyrs who sacrificed their lives. Yes, you have witnessed the good days, and all the comrades under the 9 springs will see it. As soon as Lu Zhang finished speaking, The pot started boiling and the dumplings were tumbling. Feng Qingxiu added half a ladle of cold water to it. The food is almost hot. You can bring it over first and then come back and bring the dumplings. When the dish is hot, scoop a few ladles of dumpling soup into a small pot. It is not cold water, so it heats up quickly. When Lu Jiang came back, he came over with Shi Guantao and Lu Tianzi. Sister-in-law, stop working. Shi Guantao was holding a basin of dumplings, a little embarrassed. Feng Qingxiu washed her hands and said, "You go and eat first, I'll be here soon." There were many Lu family members, and a big table was full. The dumplings in the basin were white and fat, with thin skin and big fillings. There was a large plate in front of Christine, half of which was already eaten. She didn't know how to use chopsticks, so Lu Tianzi found a spoon for her to use, and she scooped it out accurately. It turns out that scallion pancakes are not the only delicious ones. Christine's eyes narrowed. We also went to a state-owned restaurant with Edward's father's subordinates to eat dumplings and noodles, but they were not as delicious as yours. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, "That's not to say, the chefs in the restaurant are better than me, but they can't put in the oil, salt, sauce, vinegar and other seasonings as hard as I can, so most of the food they make tastes bland." But, Christine, you must have been to the International Hotel. Isn't the food there delicious? It's hard for a good woman to cook without rice. Even in state-owned restaurants, there are certain restrictions on the supply in all aspects. At this time, there is no such thing as 13-flavor chicken essence. How can you cook delicious and fragrant food? Not to mention the category of returning to the original nature of cooking. Most of what ordinary people call delicious food depends on ingredients and seasonings. Christine thought for a moment. It seems true. The food at the International Hotel is delicious. It's delicious. My dad said that the food at the state banquet is even better. In a few days, I'll invite your whole family to the International Hotel for dinner. Call my good friends Edward and Helen. The remittance coupon I gave you contains part of Edward and Helen's money. Like me, they can't use it all. When Feng Qingxiu heard this, she hurriedly said, "With such great benefits from you, how can I treat you to a treat? If your friends don't dislike our family, you can come to our house as a guest someday. I treated your father to dinner. Has experience." Christine was particularly happy. That's great, Helen and Edward must be very happy. The French are romantic, passionate, and also love making friends. Shi Guantao saw that Feng Qingxiu communicated with the foreign lesbians without any obstacles, and the children also interrupted each other, so he couldn't help but said to Lu Jiang, "My sister-in-law is really amazing. These nephews are also amazing." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1499. When other people heard this, they would be humble. Unfortunately, it happened to Lu Jiang. He smiled proudly and said, "No, your sister-in-law speaks French now. She can also speak English, Russian, and Italian. I speak Italian and Indian, and I can speak a little Japanese, so I don't have any stage fright when I go to the United Nations. Except for French and English, which I am currently studying, I either learned them from the elderly at home or privately taught them by old professors in the school. Not necessarily proficient, just know a little bit. Human energy is limited. No matter how studious Feng Qingxiu is, she still has to take care of her professional courses first." Shi Guantao raised his thumb. In his opinion, those who have knowledge and can speak foreign languages are great people. Even if the status of intellectuals is not high now, most older rural farmers and ordinary people in the market still have a high regard for intellectuals. After Feng Qingxiu and Christine finished their exchange, She turned back to greet Shi Guantao, brother Guantao, eat while it's hot, and don't stop using your chopsticks. Thank you, sister-in-law. When everyone had eaten and drank enough, there were still 2 plates of dumplings left, which were completely cold. Feng Qingxiu put them in the lunch box and handed it to Shi Guantao before he left. It won't go bad in the cold weather. You can find a place to heat it up at night one hot for dinner. Sister-in-law, how can this be done? This meal was more satisfying than eating in a state-owned restaurant. Shi Guantao selectively forgot that the dishes were packed and brought from a state-owned restaurant. You're welcome, family. Feng Qingxiu treated Lu Jiang's comrades like brothers and stuffed them directly into his hands. I didn't know them before, but now I know them. Come and play often when you're free. Lu Jiang also said, Guantao, take it. Yes, facing Lu Jiang, Shi Guantao straightened his back. Lu Jiang also had work in the afternoon, and soon took the guard to the Zishan compound by car. Christine, on the other hand, had nothing to do and taught the triplets to draw with crayons. Dun Dun and Zhuang drew very seriously, such as red suns and 5-pointed stars, although the color combinations were very strange. Lu Erxian couldn't sit still and looked at Feng Qingxiu unhappily with a sullen face. What's wrong? Feng Qingxiu was puzzled. I want to be beaten, Fu Bao said casually. If Wang Quilin hadn't taken her out for a walk to relax and then was busy entertaining the guests when she came back, she would have beaten Lu Erxian. She had worked so hard to draw it. The plum blossom picture was ruined by him. Lu Tianzi's mind was spinning quickly. Auntie, I understand. After hearing this, Feng Qingxiu looked at him. What's going on? Lu Tianzi couldn't help but laugh and said, speaking of which, I have to blame Auntie. You promised to make fried rice in front of the grain store today. He must have been angry because he didn't get the fried rice. Feng Qingxiu thought about it and suddenly felt guilty. This matter was indeed her fault. I'm sorry, Erxian. Mom is old and has a bad memory. She forgot what she promised you. She made dumplings but not rice. Can you forgive Mom? Feng Qingxiu squatted in front of him and played pity. Humph, Lu Erxian turned his head to the side. Xiong was unhappy because he didn't get the rice fried with eggs. Zibao felt sorry for his mother and immediately became unhappy. He said to the side, Okay, Erxian, my mother didn't forget it on purpose. You didn't eat less of the dumplings your mother made. You ate 3 more dumplings than Dun Dun and Zhuang eat 5 more. If you still do this, spit out the dumplings. Mom will make some fried rice for you. You can eat it with all your heart, and we will eat the fruits that Mom bought. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1500. Strangely enough, Lu Erxian was afraid of nothing but his brother Zibao. After listening to Zibao's words, why was Lu Erxian still thinking about fried rice? Even if he was angry, he did it on purpose. He wanted his mother to give him more delicious food. He turned his head and said to Feng Qingxiu, Mom, if you give me a lot of fruit to eat, I won't be angry. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, Okay, Mommy will bring you some fruit. She opened a box of Jingba items and placed them on the Kong table for them to eat as they pleased. But who of us who had just eaten had enough stomach to hold these things? The adults didn't eat, and Zibao Fubao and Dun Dun Zhuang didn't even look at it. They often have delicious food in their house, and they have never eaten anything since they were snacks, so there is not much demand for it. Lu Erxian had the exclusive possession and was almost overjoyed. He hid the Jingba box everywhere, and finally hid it under the Kong table. I will eat when I am hungry. I will eat alone, for Grandpa, Grandma, and Dad, Mom, brothers and sisters brother, eat it. At first it was said that one person would eat it, but in the end everyone ate it. I don't know what the children were thinking. Feng Qingxiu divided the remaining pastries and took out some pastries and candies from the cupboard that were actually taken out of the space in the name of black market. Send these few kilograms of fruit candies and red wool to Comrade Hu Ping, just send some refined grains from Huo Biding, send some to your family, 3 uncles, 1 aunt, and 1 cousin, each family has a box of Beijing 8 pieces and a pound of preserved fruit. The oil could not be sent out, so 5 kilograms of oil was given to Wang Xinzhen's family, Guo Ming's family and Chen Shui's family nearby. In addition, 5 overseas remittance coupons were given to each family so that they could buy what they needed. Lu Tianjun and his wife, Guan Cheng, and others were all in the capital. Feng Qingxiu also gave them a few pictures and asked Zhang Xiaoyu to send a few to her sister-in-law. They were given without blinking, and they took out a few of them one after another. When the number of people increased, dozens of them were given out in the blink of an eye. Only 30 or 40 of the 100 yuan denomination overseas remittance coupons were left. She was just thinking about how to use the remaining remittance vouchers when Christine, Helen Edward, and others came to say goodbye. Helen received a letter from her parents urging them to go home immediately, so she went home early. In the past 10 days, Kristen brought her friends here, but she came often. She would also go out with the Lu family and friends, go to the park, climb the Great Wall, and be a hero who almost died from exhaustion. The more frequent interactions, the deeper the relationship will naturally become. Hearing that she was leaving, the young and old of the Lu family were a little reluctant to leave, so Feng Qingxiu handed her the box she had brought her gifts in before. I know you have to go home sooner or later, so I prepared some gifts for your parents and you. Please take them back and thank them for me for the gifts they gave to our family. We all like them very much. You're too polite, Feng. After saying that, Kristen accepted it anyway, and then took out a lot of overseas remittance coupons from her bag. Let's go. After shopping, we spent all the money, but there's still some money left. Many overseas remittance coupons are useless. On the premise of not wasting them, we decided to leave them all to you. Most of them are intact, and some small parts have been cut off. Thank you, Christine. The cut overseas remittance coupons are also very valuable to us. There are grain and oil coupons and non-staple food coupons on them. Feng Qingxiu was not polite this time. First, the overseas remittance coupons have a time limit, and secondly, it's really useless to bring Christine and others back home. We are friends, no need to say thank you. I enjoyed my trip and look forward to our next meeting. After Christine said this, she suddenly opened her hands and gave Lu Tianzi a big hug. Before Lu Tianzi was stunned and blushing, he ran away carrying the box. I probably owe about 40,000 to 50,000 yuan. When I finish my busy work these days, I will try my best to save the manuscript and make up for it with a quick update.